So how about this group? What sort of data sets or ideas do you have?
Okay, so we tried to make these sticky notes to easy the whole process. So we identified kind of, let's say, saw that every country, be it in the global north or in the global south, has very few and diverse and absolutely not comprehensive data sets available. But there are a lot of data sets that not should but have to be open and as soon as possible. So we have listed a few of them, which are like, where the schools are, be them primary or secondary or high, universities, higher education institutions. Are there standardized curricula? Because this still doesn't exist in many places in the world. We were kind of thinking that having countrywide EO results, success rates, failure rates, etc., is very interesting in order to follow up, to be able to do longitudinal studies and to follow up on, integration of newly graduated students or groups or whatever in the learning process. Then there is something very kind of, say, sensitive that we also identified, is that we would be very interested to have access to public versus private schools success rates, to be able to compare across. We are interested to see whether education, what budgets, what part of the government spending is dedicated to education at large, because there is a notable fact, which is that there is no research and development budget for education. And this we don't need, to open up data sets to know it, we know it. Then we were also speaking about open access, in the sense of, open access to research literature at large, and actually not just opening it up to read, but to also reuse, because this could contribute to actually inject back very specific knowledge and very high level and up-to-date knowledge into the learning curricula and actually foster a bit interdisciplinarity in the curriculum.
Okay.
And so Mali had a very nice quote, which was that policy making in general doesn't have a big data problem, it has a big data problem. So I really love this. So I can give you credit for that.
I'm sure I stole that from somebody else. Original.
So this is, say, very swiftly our observations.
That's great, thanks. Okay, what about the group in the corner?
Yeah, so we started from actually the description of the linked catalog, because we had lots of data sets already there, and one question was what is already available, so we have this catalog. Then I would describe the second part of our discussion in two main points. The first one, from the pedagogical point of view, the discussion was how data set would where if we think about something which is useful to empower students to become designers of their own knowledge. So how the students can take the agency themselves to create something new where they can learn what is important for them to know in the future. And on the other side, from the management point of view, we said there are lots of data sets already about describing infrastructures or budgeting data, but most of the times the problem is that they are not compatible, and you cannot find data correctly, or what you're looking for is not easy to find out, right? So, yeah, this is the main.
That's fine. Through in the middle. Does anyone want to sum up this week?
Yeah, so we did start by spending a bit of time debating what the question was, which was probably not the most effective way of answering it. And what
formulating. It talks about what type of data we should have for each country.
yeah, but also because there is always the question of relevance, and our relevance is very much context dependent. And as the first group indicated, there is the element that even if you look at the LinkedIn catalog, it's extremely clear that education is very sparse, and there are lots of different types of data available in different places, and there is no really clear picture of what a country might provide, and how it could be useful. And certainly some data sets, like if you take the education data set from data.uk, that would be completely relevant to a country like Peru, because it would not have, it contains information that are useful in the context of the UK educational system and not another one. So it's why we debated the question in the sense that it is it's very contextualized, and it's my personal impression that education is harder than other areas like open government, for the reason that education is a very specific context in each country and might have a lot of differences.
Yeah, not even in each country, sometimes in different parts of the country.
Yeah, knowing that Scotland gets higher education for free is one thing that makes the UK even too big a country for these sort of things. We did discuss, however, some elements of who could be the relevant audience for data setting. One area we went into is understanding what data would be useful for teachers. What would make the creation of course materials and lectures more effective if data was available, and that includes very simple things like open data about curriculum, open data about the topics, and going back to the actual purpose and usefulness of anything which is created that relates to things like performance, as a success rate of courses, as well as one of my favorites, open data about the employability of people following a certain education path. So that seems to be things that we see more or less as universal.
Yeah, okay, the group at the back.
So I was just going to, if I don't know, completely add something.
Yep.
The one about what data is used for teachers is very often what other teachers have used successfully, and you see that in the UK with something like Times Educational Supplement Resources, which didn't start off as a repository for OER, ended up becoming one of the biggest, most used repositories for OER. It's a job application part of the newspaper, but the teachers posted the materials and they, oh, that's good, gave it a tick. And it's now, we've got tests Australia, tests Canada, tests
It's one point that I find extremely interesting also, because it's not about availability of OER, it's about availability which has been successful in a certain context, and making the data about what it has been used for, and it was the reason why it was successful, which is really important.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. Okay, well, we quickly talked about what we thought might be some useful data sets, and we tried from two angles. We talked about what would we like, so we talked about literacy and what we thought would be interesting for literacy, and we did very talk about that, but we came up against different definitions of that topic. And there are already organisations that do that on a national internet, so UNESCO does that internationally, but they do have data, so that's a data set that could be opened. It's not usually open for that purpose. But then we said, well, the other option, or other way, is to take what the government already does and then open that, because coming at it from that perspective is easier at least. So we then said, similarly to the group, the education budget, or particularly the Ministry of Education and its budget. And so within that, we could also look at things like teacher workforce and data on number of contract teachers, number of teachers who are permanent, textbooks, and we then also talked about textbooks, whether they are bought, whether they're delivered, and then whether teachers could possibly monitor if they are being supplied or not in the classroom, whether those textbooks never got there. And then we talked about other things like student enrollment, and proxy indicators for quality, such as student dropout or dropping from, but these things are measured by they're measured. That information is collected statistically and cleaned and checked by organisations like UNESCO, and that can be downloaded in Excel format or in HDMX format, but it's a large data set, but it's not very easy then to be reused. So I'm working with a friend or partner sort of to try and make it easier for that large data set to be broken up, but I don't really know how. So I appreciate any help. And then there's the UNESCO and UNESCO has created another data set called the wide data set, which is if you expanding the focus on, I was going to mention that, on equity in education. So using other things, if you like, to focus on an equity issue particularly. So that's a really nice visualization on the web.
Cool. Thank you. Any